Well, thank you, Sam, and thank you to all of the team in InvestNord NI for inviting me here today. I'm going to spend a few minutes with you talking about data, Ireland, and really the evolution of the 60 years of continuous evolution that has led us to be a leading player in the global data space. My name is Gary Connolly, and I'm founder of Host in Ireland. A co-opetition of companies is what I like to call it, where we've brought the best from hosting companies, designers, builders, operators, and indeed everything in between in the data and the hosting space to work as one, to try and collaborate as much as possible. I call myself a digital optimist because I genuinely have been in the data business for forever, and I see so much more benefit with a world of timely and accurate data than one without. So I am, though, in fairness, the guy usually you'll find, if any of you know me, in the corner trying to bang my head off the wall, wondering why people won't collaborate, wondering why people won't use words that people understand, and to the point of being able to communicate with people the advantages of the why as distinct to the how, because that's really what it's all about, communication to people, particularly during times of change. Host in Ireland, as you can see, it's now got a 40 partnership program. That's up from 5 only 2015. But really what it shows us is the continuing growth of the ecosystem, not just for the hosting, the actual buildings themselves or the centers, but all the widespread of the developing, maturing ecosystem for Ireland, and more where we're exporting those levels of skills all over Europe. And that's really what's most interesting and exciting for me, is to see that growth and breadth. So where are we? For those of you who are engineers, I'm sure you've done some research and you know this, but there have been other industrial revolutions. You'll read a lot now about Industry 4.0, Manufacturing 4.0. It's really just a shortened way of saying the Industrial Revolution 4.0. If you remember the first one, it was generated by steam. That was the catalyst, the thing that made it happen. Steam engines, taking water out of mines, transportation of goods and services around the world on steamships. The steam was the catalyst. It was the ignition point. Data, timely, accurate data is this generation's steam. Not the data itself, but the insights gleaned from the data. But like all revolutions, I'll come back to that name in a moment, but like all change, there's two sides to it. And newness, there's always two sides to it. The good side, data is used behind the scenes as a weapon of mass invention. This is real. This is an actual prototype, or not a prototype, or a real example where a specialist in somewhere like Japan is looking at a holographic view of a guy's brain in Los Angeles. That's where you're using data for good. But there's always a second angle to it, and the one that always hits the front of the newspapers, because you don't hear about the other side in the front of the newspapers. And that's, without question and correctly, where data is being used as a weapon of mass distraction, because we are in the world of the connected planet. We are, as humans, inclined to overdo everything that's new. Some of us run away, some of us get fully absorbed, but there's no doubt that particularly with social platforms, they are and can be seen as a weapon of mass distraction. But the one thing to remember, what's happening in the background is, whilst we're inventing new stuff and we're consuming more stuff as the planet population grows, we're dematerializing so much other stuff via digitization. And I think that example on the screen there is my desk 20 odd years ago. And as you can see, genuinely, from a calendar on the wall to a Filodex on the table, All of these things now are on that little device you have in your hand, which is a smartphone, and very soon could be on a pair of very dodgy 1980s chips glasses. So how does that manifest itself? Well, this connected planet thing, which is creating all of this data, is created by things, part of the IoT, Internet of the Planet it should be, because it's just the data that's coming off all of these devices. And by 2020, 2021, probably now, we're at 50 billion. To put some sense on that, that's 7 devices per every man, woman, and child on the planet. And when you consider only 60% of the world is connected, still 40% to be connected, gives you a sense of the number of devices that are permeating all aspects of our lives. Some good, some not so good. And this is set on a trajectory of 1 trillion things by 2030. How much data is it? Technologists are great. They're wonderful, wonderful people, scientists. They give you all sorts of great insights, but they use words that none of us understand, like a zettabyte. A zettabyte is 10 to the power of something, 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 something. So let's look at this data and give you a sense of how much data relative to something that we're all familiar with, a grain of rice. So to give you some context, a byte of data is one of the smallest forms of how you measure data. A grain of rice, I think everybody understands what a grain of rice is. And a zettabyte, 1 zettabyte in a physical manifestation would be filling the Pacific Ocean, 3 miles deep, take all the land masses, you still have space in the Pacific Ocean. It's ridiculously big. That's 1 zettabyte. By 2025, we're anticipating 165 zettabytes. So 165 Pacific Oceans of rice to be stored, forwarded, computed, keep the rain out of it in a thing called a center. Because you don't need a center if you don't have data. Because data and center is where the magic is when it's combined. These aren't just big sheds that are built for no particular reason. COVID came along. And as you can see, what it's done is effectively it's accelerated digitization. Our schools, our education, our home, our every aspect of our life, from payments to everything, giving anything, think of anything over the last 6, 12 months, digital, even this platform here where we're communicating, is all facilitated by devices, telecommunications, and a data center. Those 3 key components. Every industry, bar none now. You might have suggested some industries pre-pandemic were less to digitize, or they call it digital transformation. But now, unless you are digitized, you have survived. You're looking to strive. If you're looking to strive, it's all digital. So when you look at this graph now that I showed earlier, quite literally, it's off the chart now in terms of the speed of digitization, which creates, every device creates data, and every data set either goes in through 1, 2, or maybe 10 data centers. Did it start last week? No. Did it start 10 years ago? Absolutely not. Did it start 60 years ago? Probably. And that's why all we are dealing with now is the acceleration of something that started with mainframes, got more traction with mini computers, really took a real kick forward with computers, took a serious acceleration with smart devices or smart phones and smart tablets and stuff. And now with the embeddedness of these devices and the cost of hosting, it's actually gone completely into a new stratosphere of speed. But it is just an evolution of a lot of the stuff we've done before. Let's look at Ireland for a second, the Republic of Ireland. You know, we could go all the way back to the first transatlantic cable in 1856 and all that type of stuff in Valencia Island. But let's just for a second talk about Republic of Ireland, was the largest exporter of software in the world, bar none, in 2000. Because what we were doing was we were a digital gateway for the US companies. And 20 years ago, even more so than now, US companies ruled the software world. Microsoft, Lotus, BAN, all these companies. And what they used to do is send over their master floppies, and we digitized it to Hebrew, to German, to French, to Italian, and then we exported it in 40-foot containers and floppy disks. And there was a whole lot of other stuff, but that was what we did. It was on these mediums. Now, I don't know what age group the listenership is, but I'm sure there are people in this that I'm looking that have never used one of these. These were the backbone of that data export business, floppy disks with different apps that were put into a box, shipped on a 40-foot container, over into the boat, delivered to the dude in Duisburg with his German Microsoft Word. That was a big part of the Irish FDI export business. 3 billion, I think. OECD recognized us as the largest exporter. You'll see it in the presentation just previously. So what happened around that time? Well, what happened around that time was we were the king of software exports, but nobody, well, not nobody, we were moving away from physical medium. We were moving towards computers, smart devices. We didn't want floppy disks. We didn't want CD-ROMs. We didn't want fobs. So therefore, what we had to do 20 years ago was literally within a 3-year period, get building fiber optic cables as quick as you can to deliver the software and services over fiber optic cables as distinct to floppy disks. And that's what we did. That crescendo then, all these fibers crescendoed into a ring around our Dublin. You know, no imagination used, but we have an M50 ring, which was being built around that time. So somebody had to think, why don't we run a T50 trunking all the way around the city? Can't see it, but that's where all the fiber cable is. That's where all the interconnectivity is. That's where the diversity and the redundancy and the resilience is. And that's why you get this cluster of the big data centers here. Evolution from what we were doing, plus we invested in this infrastructure that was best in class at the time and still very much so. We export software to these places. We also, though, as we will see, and I'm sure many of the listeners here are interested in, there's a 1.25 billion per annum going forward, still invested in the design, build, and operation of the centers. And as you saw with the previous slide, it grows the ecosystem. It's also ICT and related services for the Republic of Ireland is now the largest export, bar none. When you continue, and data centers are a big part of that. There'll be nearly 180,000 people working in this space. Excuse me. And data centers are part of that. Someone like Microsoft, Oracle, Amazon, Google, they would have over 200 business units working, of which data centers are only one. So it's a really important part of our foreign trade, the export of computer services, including the data in the centers, like Spotify, like Airbnb, like Netflix, like all the word processing packages on Microsoft, etc. They're all the data names for the centers. The diversity of the ecosystem, I said it earlier. And there was a time when we just brought data. There was a time that we were just fulfilling it with our engineering companies here. But when you consider the likes of Mercury, Kirby, Shure, they'd already worked on the likes of Intel, Pfizer, pharmaceutical plants, biotech plants, wafer fab plants. Doing data centers for some of them was just a move laterally because the same disciplines apply. But more and more over the last, particularly 5 to 10 years, you then start to see the big multinational companies that are the suppliers, CommScope, Vertiv, Kohler, Schneider, Siemens, these companies who used to drop in kit, now they establish bases here and the economic job and multipliers. And now we've got legal firms in Houston, Ireland. We've got architects, we've got construction engineers, we've got quantity surveyors, all using the hub and the learnings to export their services throughout the world Many of them are in Singapore as well as Europe. This gives you a sense of the size and the scale and the growth. You know, it's quite phenomenal to think, and not really when you know that we were the largest software exporter 20 years ago. We still are a tier 1 geographic exporter of software. That's software that's in the centers, both the local dividend and the export dividend, and the export dividend of the staff that are all over. Go to any place, Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, Paris, Oslo, Stockholm. It's like Blanchardstown, this place in Dublin. How are we going to stay in this race? How are we going to stay on this trajectory? And most importantly, continue to be a tier 1 location. It's all about our ability to transition our grid, because the #1 expense for a center that holds data is electricity. It turns that electricity into data and exports it across the fiber cable. So our ability to harness the natural resource that Ireland has, when you consider right now, Ireland has between 18 and 19 times more renewable electricity generating capacity than we can ever consume. A sea mass 10 times bigger than our land mass. And what we're looking to do over the next 9 years now is move that from 40% annually to 70% annually renewable energy on the grid, peaking at 90%. That's why you're seeing so much activity on batteries, behind the meter, UPS work. You're looking at sort of power to X, which is converting that curtailed wind and turning it into a hydrogen gas of some sort. Our ability to do this, to continue to feed the center business, which is part of our export, is our #1 challenge right now. The demand is there. We have probably twice what we already have installed, and a pipeline of probably 4 times what we have installed. It's an evolution. That's the key thing to understand. As I showed in the previous slide, you know, around the just above the little fella on his hunkers, that was the floppy disk time. We've evolved. That's the key ingredient, is keep evolving, understanding what the organizations that we're working with. And there's a continuing influx of APAC companies or Asian Pacific Rim companies. TikTok are here now. One would suggest that some of the other larger APAC companies, because they like to come where the technology, the staff, the policies are right, the pedigree is there, the people are there. So we're seeing more and more of those coming in. And that's me, a happy little Dobby at the end. I was a grumpy little Dobby at the start, bang my head. But when I see collaboration, when I see people actually wanting to work together for the betterment of the collective, it's just a fantastic thing to actually observe. And I think that's one of the greatest reasons that I'm so happy about hosting Ireland, is we grew it from 5 to 40. We probably have a waiting list of another 30 or so. It's about the ability of these people to actually get on, work together, and use that energy to collaborate and export a common message, because words matter, consistent words matter. And that's why I'm hopeful that our message will get it through to those that are listening, that the way we stay in this game is continuing on the path to decarbonize the grid. So thank you again, Sam and Invest NI, Barry, who's doing the video. You won't see him, but he's doing all the recordings. And if you want to get in contact with me, all the details are there on the screen. I hope you enjoyed this session, and thank you so much again. Bye-bye.